Now, on January 23rd, 2024, James and Jennifer Crumbly are going to stand trial to see if they're guilty of 4 counts of manslaughter for a crime that their son Ethan Crumbley committed. Now, Ethan Crumbley was the killer at Oxford High School, where he took the lives of 4 students, injured 6 more students, and injured 1 teacher. Now, Ethan Crumbley has been found guilty and will spend the rest of his life in jail. But what I'm going to ask you, and what we're going to discuss in this video, is it right that the parents are being charged in this case? And if so, why? Or, like every other shooter, do the parents get off scot-free? But before we get into that, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's continue to grow the channel. Leave a comment for me. Tell me what you think. Do you think that the parents should be charged in this case? Or do you think that Ethan should live out the punishment for the crime that Ethan committed? And leave a like. Let's get the video out to as many people as possible. That being said, let's jump right into it. So, before we get into anything that Ethan Crumbley did or James and Jennifer Crumbley, let's just take a moment and remember who the victims were of this story. Oxford High School students, Madison Baldwin, 17, Tate Meyer, 16, Justin Schilling, 17, and Hannah St. Juliana, 14, were all killed on November 30th. So that being said, how did this happen, and why are the parents being charged? Well, to put it very simply, what the prosecution is saying is that there were signs that Ethan Crumbley needed help, and his parents, James and Jennifer, never provided that help. They also claimed that it was a little too easy to access the gun for Ethan Crumbley, especially in the state of mind that he had. So I want to ask you, what role does the parents play in this case? Now, I'm not sure. I don't know what's right or wrong, and that's why I'm going to ask you folks, and I want to see and hear your perspective on what's going on in this case. So let's just start with Ethan. Now, we know Ethan had a history of violence and had a history with his school where basically he was creating and making art that showed violence and people dying and blood and gore and all sorts of things. Not only that, he had recently been down to the principal's office because one of the teachers did express some of the concern for some of the graphic nature of the art that Ethan Crumbley was providing. And Ethan's excuse was that he was replicating or mimicking a video game. Okay, there was evidence that Ethan Crumbley needed some sort of help. Now, hindsight's always 20/20. So when you watch the court case and you hear the tape where Ethan Crumbley is actually saying that he's going to be the next school shooter and he's going to have fun tomorrow, quote unquote, obviously at that point you're thinking like anybody that would have heard this should have taken that very seriously. Okay, and that is a big thing that the judge talks about in this case when he's giving Ethan the sentence that he gives him. He talks a lot about Ethan's mindset and his behaviors prior to the murders that day and prior to him injuring the other folks at that school. Now, you will hear the defense come through and say, hey, maybe after a life sentence, 25 years, maybe the parole board can take a look at Ethan and maybe he's reformed himself since then. They're trying to give him a little bit of hope. Now, the judge doesn't really fall for this so much.
In short, the court cannot find that there is a possibility that the defendant can be rehabilitated based solely on his brain maturing. Daily, there are people who have mature brains that commit heinous crimes and show no signs of rehabilitation or possibility of rehabilitation. The court finds the defendant's possibility of rehabilitation is a neutral factor. In conclusion, the court finds that the defendant's age and home and family environment are mitigating factors. The court finds the remaining factors due to it. This crime is not the result of impetuosity or recklessness, nor does the crime reflect the hallmarks of youth. The defendant carefully and meticulously planned and carried out the shooting. Accordingly, the court, having weighed all factors and noting the Michigan Supreme Court's admonition in Taylor, finds that the prosecution has rebutted the presumption by clear and convincing evidence that a sentence to life without parole is a disproportionate sentence. As such, this case will proceed to sentencing on December 8th, 2023. That is the order of the court. With that, counsel, we need to set another placement hearing because I have to still review defendant's placement every 30 days.
Now, the piece that I'm really talking about today is, are the parents liable in this case? What role do they play? And the crazy part about this one is that James and Jennifer went missing shortly after the shooting took place. If you remember that was such a crazy thing to me, right? Now, is it the responsibility of the parent to make sure that their kids don't have access to guns, especially kids that are underage? Yes, I think 100%. If you're going to own a gun, you should put it in a gun safe.
Is it true that you asked him to buy the firearm?
Yes.
Is it true that you gave him your own money to buy the firearm?
Yes.
I grew up with guns, had a lot of respect for guns. I can tell you I did not have access to guns unless I had the key to the safe, and parents always had that key on them. Very simple, right? That's something that I truly believe in. Now, does that mean that James and Jennifer should go to jail just based off of that? I don't know. I think that that's the question that you folks who are watching this video can help me answer. Now, where I think it's troublesome and it's concerning is that there was a lot of things that were happening in that home that may have pointed to Ethan Crumbley needing some help. Case in point, Ethan Crumbley himself asked for help and said that he was in trouble, and did the parents take it seriously? Now, maybe that statement alone is not fair because maybe they did take it seriously. Maybe the parents, Jennifer and James, didn't know what to do with Ethan when they heard that, okay? Now, maybe we're going to hear in their court case where they say, like, hey, we reached out to friends, or we Googled it, or whatever the case might be. Maybe they just didn't find something or find the help that they needed. Now, that is 100% speculation. Maybe they dismissed it, and they just said, you know what? Ethan's just playing around. We don't want to hear it. He's fine. We're not going to do anything about it. Maybe that happened, okay? Maybe because we know that they went to the school at one point after the teacher complained about the picture that Ethan had brought forward. Maybe they were on the defense thinking like, everybody's just picking on my son, right? And let's face it, parents, a lot of parents out there believe that their kids could do no wrong. Now, it's one thing to have that faith in your child and unequivocal, right? Most parents love their children no matter what. In this case, should they be punished because maybe they overlooked something? Now, you got to look at it from the perspective of the victims, right? They didn't do anything wrong. They just went to school that day, roaming through the classes, especially the seniors, thinking that this is going to be their last year of school. They're going to get an opportunity to be young adults and contribute back to the world, take all the knowledge that they've learned and put that into work, practice, play, or even college. And they went to school, and they no longer get the opportunity to do that because of Ethan Crumbley. Again, though, is that on James and Jennifer? Now, do they have a shared responsibility with Ethan? I think that they do, and I think that this is where the trial is going to be very interesting. And this is where I'm going to cue you folks to leave a comment down below, because there is a lot of evidence in this trial. So this is where I want to hear from you folks. There's a lot of evidence that we're seeing from the media, but there's not a lot of evidence that we know because the trial hasn't started yet. So what is going to make it into that courtroom and what's not going to make it into that courtroom? Because keep in mind, anything that's said that doesn't make it into that courtroom is only speculation. And do we think that James and Jennifer are going to end up being found guilty on this case? So a couple other things that I want to hit, right? Why did James and Jennifer go on the run shortly after this happened? Did they feel that they were guilty of something already? Is there something that basically they knew that he had the gun, right? And we have heard that. We've heard that in the media, that they knew he had access to the gun and possibly even possession. And you do hear about the text messages going back and forth that happened before the shooting, right, between Jennifer and Ethan. There's a lot of evidence in those text messages. Now, those are all things that we've heard from the media. But again, I ask you, is that going to make it into court? I don't know. I do stand on the side that whatever happens, at the very least, Ethan Crumbley is in jail where he should be. And this should have never have happened. I don't care where it happens. I don't care if you're a believer of guns, a non-believer of guns, or whatever the case might be. There should never be school shootings, and innocent kids should never have to worry about going to school. That's just one of those things. So there's a lot of things that are happening in this case, and you're probably thinking like, oh, you get really passionate when you're talking about the parents and what they might have known or not known. And yeah, I am. That doesn't mean I think they're guilty or not guilty at this point. What I'm thinking is this case is obviously going to set a precedence for anything that happens going forward. But I'm looking at this very closely because this could ultimately make parents a little bit more active in what's going on in their kids' lives. Now, keep in mind, I say this with a grain of salt. We're basically saying that we shouldn't include parents in some things at school and we should include them in other things. And we're saying that parents should be held accountable in one area and not accountable in other areas, and so on and so forth. And this is where I think parents need help. And I think this court case is really going to help us out. What does the government expect a parent to do? And ultimately, what does parents expect themselves to do, right? What is our role within humanity to teach our children? Now, obviously, teach them the respect. Obviously, teach them that hurting somebody else is not the right thing to do. Obviously, killing people is not right, okay? But if the school knew about this, what role should the school have played, and should they have called the authorities and played a more active role? And I'm not saying they should, I'm just asking the question. And the parents, knowing what they knew, what steps should they have taken legally to prevent this from happening to other people? Because I'll tell you, if I was a parent of one of those 4 victims, I'd be very angry right now. So that all being said, I want to hear from you folks. I want to hear what your thoughts on this. And I hope it came across as very neutral. Yes, I'm very passionate as a parent. I would not want this happen to my kid. And I'm curious, not on the fact that this happened or what happened to Ethan Crumbley. I think he's gotten what he deserved. But on the basis of James and Jennifer, what they knew, what they should have known, what they did, what they didn't do, and what they should have done. And would that have contributed to this not happening to those poor victims? So if you stayed with me this long, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit a like on the video if you like the content, and leave a comment down below. I love that our community is so active. You folks put so many different perspectives on some of these videos. It's very refreshing because there is times that I miss stuff, or there's times that I don't add stuff in because I don't think it's important. Then I hear it from one of you folks and I'm like, wow, man, maybe that was a little bit more important than I thought. And that really keeps me going. And believe me, the comments, I love. No matter what the comments are, you don't have to share my perspective. And I've been very clear about that. We can have opposite perspectives, but it is nice to read those perspectives, and it's nice to talk back and forth like adults. So I do appreciate everybody that leaves those comments. We are continuing to grow. We had just over 110 subscribers this past month, so I'll keep bringing the videos out to you folks. I'm going to create more shorts, so that way we get something going every day. But new videos will still come once a week on Wednesdays. And if we're really ambitious, we'll bring one on Saturday as well, like we have been the last few weeks. I am going into the holiday quarter at work, which means I got to work a lot more. I don't have to work more hours, but it definitely seems like a lot more stressful. So I'll probably go down to 1 video for a little while. That being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg. I'm over and out.